The jelly bean jumble of colour from tulips and Aquilegia adds a joyful flavour to the patio containers and gives the garden a taste of sunshine on even the most heavily overcast days, of which we have experienced very many recently. But the lower the blanket of cloud hangs in the sky, the more forcefully spring seems to push back with irrepressible new life, unfurling from branches, pushing up from the forest floor and bursting forth in the garden as the buds of April become the blooms of May. I remember a school hymn we used to sing that opened with the lines, "Hail, all hail the merry month of May, we will hasten to the woods away." And while the garden is a great delight, the woods are also utterly magical to hasten away to at this time of year, for the enchanting sight of wildflower carpets across the forest floor. So along with our tour around the garden, we will also take a wander through the flower-filled groves, glades and thickets to savour the wildness and magic of the English countryside at this time of year. Welcome to our merry month of May countryside wildflower foray, with a little detour to the gardens at Great Dixter, which are always a painterly planting tour de force, and to our small space garden tour with greetings if you're new here, and old friends are dearly welcome to our garden once more. There is a playful jelly bean joyfulness to the overall impression of the tulips, but on closer inspection, the unique subtlety to the petal colouring of each flower influences the way I think about them. Mistress is a pink sunrise glowing at dawn as the chorus of birdsong begins. Princess Irene is a tropical ocean sunset, a gloriously rich orange with burgundy feathering. And Negrita has the moody intensity of deepening purple and violet clouds at dusk. Mistress is the tallest, a classy tulip in shimmering pink, loving full sun, and despite its elegant appearance is very resilient, resisting recent gales, rain and a hailstorm. Sumptuous and sweetly scented, stunning Princess Irene was named almost 80 years ago after Princess Irene, the granddaughter of Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands. In 1946, an army regiment was also named after the princess, and her beautiful tulip namesake is also very battle-hardened, taking on everything the stormy recent weather has thrown its way. It looks wonderful paired with the saturated spring foliage of Cotinus, the smoke bush, which we grow in a container. We focused on Negrita in our last video, and this gorgeous tulip was the first to open back in late March. It's lost a few petals along the way, but remains a beautiful presence. According to RHS experts, Princess Irene and Negrita are amongst the most reliably perennial border tulips, so they should flower year after year planted in the ground. In containers, these blooms do tend to return smaller and shorter after a couple of years in the pots. In various places around the garden, we find the odd ancient pot-bound bulb returning in miniature. In the textured and playful spring display around the timbered entrance porch at Great Dixter, we were taken with an eye-catching white lily tulip called Marilyn, bearing a bold cherry lipstick stain on the petals. In this context, the distinctive markings resembled giant red pine needles, contrasting with the soft blue-grey of the needled conifer branches above, a technicolor meets texture reference moment. And with the Marilyn name association, I thought of Hollywood and an old televised interview starring the late Jimmy Stewart talking about his career. He said it was not so much the performance that matters, but the creation of moments. As an actor, what was important was to prepare yourself as best you could to make those impactful moments happen. And that's how Great Dixter's approach to gardening is experienced by its reverential audience. Not as a performance, but as something more soulful, as impactful and long memorable moments, delivered from its uniquely authentic horticultural voice. They're like a stage set. Great Dixter was the family home of the hugely influential writer and gardener, the late Christopher Lloyd. Today, the house and garden are part of a charitable trust under Chief Executive, Head Gardener and Horticultural Educator Fergus Garrett, who collaborated creatively with Lloyd for over a decade and continues the spirit of planting innovation with a focus on biodiversity. For more information on the history and design of Great Dixter, please find suggested links below. In the arts and crafts tradition, the garden includes a series of rooms connected by steps and archways. Steps are the perfect way to display tulips without having to worry about planning for the layering of heights. The sequence of elevations will do that perfectly for you. If, like us, you don't have steps in the garden, standing containers on upturned pots can graduate or undulate height in your patio display. Sometimes the tulip tastemakers suggest one should avoid mixing richly coloured bulbs with pastel shades, but pastels and rich tones can work very effectively and delightfully together, adding a sense of three-dimensionality to the display, creating a very painterly quality using the artist's technique of juxtaposing softness and strength, luminosity and velvety richness, as well as helping to gently lead the eye around the composition. We've had an exceptionally wet and stormy winter and spring this year, but some plants have thrived in these conditions. I planted climbing rose Mary Delany at the base of the arch last August. We're hoping to create a romantic canopy of fragrant pink roses enclosing the bench. Waterlogged clay at the bottom of the garden caused concern for the roots, but Mary seems healthy and has put on quite a growth spurt in the last few weeks. This is a repeat flowering rose blooming from summer to autumn, suited to sun or partial shade. It is finger friendly, meaning virtually thornless, which is a bonus for arranging climbing stems, and there's a great sense of romance to the loose double flowers with their lightly fragrant old rose scent. A fragrance which studies suggest can have beneficial stress-lowering effects. Either side of the bench, Acorus gramineus Ōgon, the Japanese sweet flag, has been growing in pots for over 15 years, flourishing in this wet weather and relishing the moisture, reflecting the fact that these are marginal aquatic plants, often found in the aquatic section of garden centres, as well as around our little pool. They do, however, cope very well with drier conditions and are happy in containers if watered in a dry summer. The delicate golden foliage looks attractive all year round, becoming animated in the slightest breeze, and pots are dotted about the garden in sun and shade as an attractive textural foil to the many different petal and foliage forms and colours. The botanical species is native to Japan, Korea and Eastern Asia. In Japan in the Heian period, it was used ceremonially to ward off evil spirits and is valued in China for medicinal properties and ceremonial symbolism. The common name sweet flag comes from the pleasing sweet scent when the plant is crushed or cooked. This golden grass-like perennial benefits aesthetically from occasional removal of the spent brown leaves that accumulate within fresh growth. They are rhizomatous, and even divisions with minimal roots are very obliging to get established. They also provide year-round shelter for insect life in the garden. As well as benefiting moisture-loving plants, the recent wet weather has been enjoyed by an exploding slug and snail population, resulting in many nibbled petal edges this spring, with narcissi targeted in particular. But one very beautiful plant that has been flowering away enthusiastically, with all the luminosity of white narcissus petals retaining unbelievably pristine perfection, is Aquilegia Spring Magic White. A graceful perennial that's also nectar-rich for pollinators, happy in full sun or partial shade, very suited to pots and containers, and seemingly quite unappetizing to gastropod grazers. Now that our rather belated apple blossom is finally opening in May, they make a truly charming pairing, along with the flowering white lilac as a backdrop. She mows me, she mows me not, she mows me, she mows me not, she mows me, she mows me not. In May, we are encouraged to leave our lawns unmown for the month, letting grass and wildflowers grow and flourish to help sustain our vital pollinators. And last year in our own garden, we didn't mow the areas of common daisy, Bellis perennis, for 6 weeks. I think wildlife-sustaining lawns with a galaxy of these daisies are a beautiful sight, but the problem we've found with adopting the longer-term no-mow approach is that lawn daisies left unmown burn out too fast. They put all their energy into going to seed, and then the plant thinks, great, job done. And consequently, there is a decreased seasonal pollen and nectar supply for the pollinators that love daisies, including beetles, hoverflies, butterflies and moths. So this May and through the summer, we're going to alternate between areas of daisies, mowing in rotation to keep them flowering longer and provide the most consistent benefits possible. I appreciate that not everyone wants daisies in the lawn, but if you would like to introduce Bellis perennis to your turf, a cost-effective trick is to ask a friend or neighbour for the damp, freshly mown clippings from a lawn where daisies are in seed, and then sprinkle those grass clippings all around your patch. Bellis perennis is the cheery picnic daisy, carpeting short grass habitats in open spaces. But it's in the woods where the most mysterious and atmospheric wildflower carpets are found at this time of year. Mysterious and mystical, bluebells were historically linked to the supernatural realm, with folk names like witches' thimbles and fairy ringers. Of all bluebells growing in the world today, around half are apparently found in the UK, where they are an iconic and legally protected species. From mid-April into May, they captivate the senses, shimmering in shafts of sunlight or seeming to drift in an ethereal, hazy blue mist over woodland slopes. Or pooled in hollows like deep water, as though you could bathe in them. Their nodding heads are gently arched as if bent in secret prayer or performing ancient incantations while releasing their delicately fragrant incense. Colonies are predominantly native English bluebells, but a growing proportion have hybridized with the robustly upright Spanish bluebells, first introduced to gardens here in the 17th century. Fortunately, the English bluebell has higher fertility and sets more seed than the Spanish variety, and hopefully this helps protect its native legacy and the pollinator wildlife it supports. It is often a signifier of ancient woodland, sometimes long after the trees have gone. According to the Woodland Trust, the rare unpigmented white English bluebell occurs once in every 10,000 blue-flowered plants. To grow a bluebell from seed to flower takes 5 to 7 years. We once bought some English bluebells in the green to try and introduce them to the bottom of our garden. We read that they can spread and outcompete other smaller plants, but 2 years later they had disappeared, the roots succumbing to the waterlogged clay. So whilst they will tolerate a range of soil types in sun or partial shade, they definitely need well-drained soil. We planted more in the raised bed with excellent drainage. Those bluebells disappeared again. The conditions were just too dry. Full of contradictions, bluebells were once associated with finding happiness in true love, but also with meeting a supernatural death. To wander amongst them was to court bad luck, but to place one in a shoe or under the pillow was a token of good fortune and protection. A wreath of bluebells placed on the head could compel the wearer to tell the truth, revealing hidden secrets. Today, the secrets held by bluebells in their fascinating symbiotic and competitive relationships with plants and fungi around them continue to be unlocked by science. The star-shaped flowers spangle across spring woodland floors in a magical display, and often you will detect its presence from the pungent garlic embrace hanging in the air before you come across the site. Wild garlic, the edible perennial, also known as ramsons, is the forager's favourite and on the menus of the hippest restaurants, with the flowers adorning salads and the leaves in wild garlic pesto, pizza, sourdough, soup and aioli. It is easy to grow at home from seed, and unlike bluebells, it won't take 5 years to flower. It can light up a difficult, shady, damp spot, but will also tolerate a sunny position if soil retains moisture. The distinctive smell of wild garlic is down to its chemistry, and these compounds are partly what have made it such an effective medicinal plant over many centuries. And the visual chemistry with the human brain creates an amazing dreamlike quality that floods the mind with mood-enhancing hormones. might feel as though our earlier scenes of woodlands filled with gorgeous native wildflowers that have evolved together in harmony for thousands of years as part of a delicately balanced ecosystem have little connection to our patio full of ornamental container plants. But even in this orchestrated, human-created plant environment, nature is busy exploiting niches and spotting opportunities and matching plant to place. In many of the tulip and allium pots, self-seeded nemesia and poppies are growing, the progeny of plants in other pots or in our borders. Nature has ensured that once the spring bulbs have finished flowering, these containers will continue to bloom, and that is incredibly useful in a small garden with limited hiding places, to have containers with a long season of successional colour and interest beyond the flowering season of bulbs. All the Welsh poppies and nemesia flowering in this container in August, which is planted with spring flowering perennial allium and narcissus bulbs, have self-seeded from elsewhere in the garden. Nature has multiplied the resources available to pollinators. What will these seedlings grow into? It's always exciting to see what surprises pop up in pots. We hope you'll join us here again to share in any discoveries of unexpected gems. Thank you as always for watching, subscribing and engaging, gardening and walking around the woods with us here at Appleby Fern Sea. Until next time, we wish you all flowerful times and nature-soothed minds.